The 800 meter is the fastest, cruelest, most unforgiving race in the entire sport of track and field. Period. It is the only distance race that starts in lanes, forcing athletes into a high-stakes drag race just to establish their position. And crucially, it is the only distance event that allows 8 people into the final. Every other distance final at a global championship allows between 12 and 15, allowing for packs to form and tactical pacing to develop. In the 800, there is nowhere to hide. You are exposed from the gun. The 800 meter is the gateway from the sprints to the distance realm. This is where worlds collide. And this is what every Olympic champion in the 800 meters since 1976 have in common. First off, these are all of the 800 meter Olympic champions since the Montreal Olympics for both men and women. The 800 is its entirely different beast. From 1981 until 2026, the world record has gone from 141.73 to 140.91. That's not even a second improvement in almost 5 decades. To put in perspective, here are all of the distance world records from June 1981 when the 800 meter world record was set, compared to all the world records today. The 800 is by far the least improved upon. To make these world records more comparable, here is the per lap improvement on each world record since that time. As we see, as the distance increases, so do the per lap improvements. It seems that as the technology and training gets better, it affects the longer distances rather than the lower mid distances. The more aerobic the race is, the more we see this pattern shape out. But this also probably tells us that the training for the 800 has not improved to the extent of the distance events too. On the women's side, we even see a more damning story. The world record of 153.28 seconds set in 1983 is still the world record today. I know the controversy over Jarmila's world record given how she looks, but I'm purposely not touching drug abuse and testing in this series because drug testing was a joke back then. EPO wasn't even a banned substance until 1990, and they didn't even have a test for it for almost another 15 years later. So take that with what you will. However, here are the women's world records since the 800 meter world record was broken in 1983, and it's the exact same story here when we compare these world record improvements on a per lap basis as it is on the men's side. As the distance increases, the improvements to the world records get greater. So this confirms our theory that the pace of change of running technology and training hasn't caught up or affected the 800 as much as the longer events, which is super exciting and cool because this means we don't have to get lost in the fog of war when comparing these athletes as we do in the longer distances. We don't have to stipulate, what if Steve Ovett had the same super shoes and synthetic tracks we have today? Could he have competed with Jakob Ingebrigtsen in 2021? What about Henry Rono in the steeple? Could he have beaten George Beamish in the 2025 World Championships? We don't know because there's too many variable changes. But in the 800 meter, we don't have to do that. Because if you put prime Sebastian Coe, Joachim Cruz, and Wilson Kipketer on the starting line alongside the modern dominators of Marco Arop and Emmanuel Wanyanye at a global championship, it would be anybody's race. And that is the only event in distance in arguably all of track and field where you can say that's the case. On the female side, the modern era doesn't even stand a chance. If the fastest runners from the 1980s showed up in their prime at today's global championship, it would be a battle for 3rd place. And this is what makes the 800 meters so fascinating, because we're not comparing hypotheticals in this video, we're comparing prime athletes. So let's get into the variables in common for all of these Olympic champions. You ready? How old do you have to be, and what physical attributes do you have to have in order to become an 800 meter Olympic champion? These are the heights and weights of each Olympic champion since Montreal for men and women. For men, we see a variety of heights we don't see in any other distance. The smallest height to win the Olympics is 5'7" Emmanuel Wanyanye in 2024, while the tallest is 6'4" Niels Schumann in 2000, with the average height being around 6'1", while the weights range from 132 pounds to 190 pounds, with the average being around 162.6. For both of the 1500 meter and 5000 meter, the average Olympic champion is around average height for both men and women. Jakob Ingebrigtsen was the tallest 1500 meter Olympic champion since at least 1976. Jakob would be average height for an 800 meter Olympic champion. And it's also worth noting that there is a cluster of athletes between the heights of 6'2" to 6'3", with almost half of the champions coming from that height range. The average weight for each female champion is 130.9 pounds, while the average height is 5'7". So even on the women's side, we see that they're taller. This puts our athletes' BMI at 21.4 and 20.5 for men and women respectively, meaning our athletes are not only longer, but they have more musculature too. But it isn't just about the sheer physical presence of these athletes. It is about the brutally short time window the human body can maintain this kind of hard output for an extended period of time. The average age of a gold medalist in the 800 for men is 24.4, and 25.1 for women. There was only one person to win the Olympics in their 30s, and that was Kelly Holmes. Most of these athletes are old enough to be in or just out of college by a couple of years. We find that compared to the 1500 meter, where the average male champion is 23.5, it seems like there's some sort of transient neurological peak in your early to mid 20s when you can hammer these grueling, fast race pace workouts and peak faster in the lower mid distances. Even when Rudisha won 2 consecutive Olympics, he was 27 the second time he did it, which is the 3rd oldest athlete to win since 1976 on the men's side. The 800 is a young man's and women's game. What should an Olympic champion run in the 400 and 1500 in order to give themselves the best chance to winning the Olympics in the 800? Having an aerobic engine of a good 1500 meter helps you hang on in a race when you're 65 seconds into the 800 and need to start to kick to home. It helps you deal with the acidosis and use that lactate as energy while maintaining actual force into the ground when your legs aren't as responsive. The endurance element of the 800 helps you redline for that much longer. Champions Joaquim Cruz, Steve Ovett, and William Tenyui fit this build, but having great endurance only helps if you're in the conversation for a win in the race 400 meters into it. Because if you're 2 seconds back with 500 to go, the odds are stacked against you like sacks of sand on your shoulders. There are the 45-point and faster 400 meter runners stepping up to the 800, like Paul Arang, Alberto Huarantina, and Emmanuel Carrier, who can take you to the gray zone, as 800 meter American great Johnny Gray would say. The first 400 meter with these kinds of runners feels like getting beaten with a straw bag full of soap right from the start. None of it feels good. These guys go out so fast that it puts your legs into shock and makes it so much harder to take your place in the first 200 meters. Having a fast 400 comes with a trade-off. Those fast twitch muscle fibers and powerful strides run out of juice much quicker than those 800, 1500 meter runners. So focusing on speed, endurance, and getting out quick and claiming your place is absolutely crucial. Very few athletes in history have had a world-class time in the 400 and the 1500, contrary to other events where many athletes do have world-class times in the events above them and below them. The 800 is the huge exception in the distance world, where you can be a world class in the 400, 800 or a world class in the 800, 1500, but not both. But here's another exception. The 800 meter has a lot of runners that have a decently fast 400 meter, but not too impressive, and an okay 1500 meter. These runners are 800 meter specialists, and there are more specialists in the 800 meter than in any other event. Champions like Vauborn Rodal, Neil Schumann, and Wilfred Bungay fit this description. So there are many archetypes to be a great 800 meter runner. For women, it's almost the exact same story, with the exception of the likes of Caster Semenya, which is a subject for another video. Let's break down the actual racing tactics in an 800 meter Olympic final. Starting from the gun, the first 200 meters of the race is unadulterated chaos, and every single champion knows that they have to claim their spot immediately. Because the race starts in lanes and breaks at the 100 meter mark, the stagger creates a terrifying convergence of 8 athletes, all running near sprint speed, suddenly having to merge into one lane without losing their momentum, without getting tripped up, and without getting caught behind a slower runner. All of this while maintaining an efficient stride, which isn't going to be an efficient stride for someone else. If you've ever run in a pack, you understand how difficult this is. When you put all of this together, you get some major physical contact. Former 800 meter Canadian record holder Brandon McBride broke his foot in 2022 in the first 200 meters of his race, falling down after colliding with another athlete. In the 1980 Olympic finals, the first 200 was an absolute crapshoot with so much pushing and shoving. Nobody got a clean start there. If you look at every men's final from 1976 to 2024, the opening 200 consistently hits between 23.7 and 24.7 seconds. Even in slow tactical races like in 1980, 2000, and 2008, when the field went out between 53 to 54 point in the first 400, which is a jog for these athletes, the first 200 meters was 25 flat or faster. There still was a battle for position in the first 200 because it's the investment for the setup for the rest of your race. For the women, it's historically between 26 and 27.5 seconds. That is essentially an all-out sprint for anyone who's not a professional. But this is the strange part. For men, there is a wide variety of placements for the first 200 meters that can lead you to success. You have the likes of David Rudisha and Emmanuel Wanyanye taking their race at a fast pace right from the get-go and win. You have slow races like in 1980 where Steve Ovett was in 7th, who ended up winning. Fast races like in 1992 where William Tenyui was also in 7th. Yuriy Borzakovskiy was at the back of the pack in 2004, 200 meters in. There is very little pattern in placement by itself in the first 200 meters. However, if you look at how these runners place themselves when they break to the inside lane compared to everyone else in the field, These runners avoid contact the most and are positioning themselves so they can run smoothly and the least distance possible going into the corner. So they're aggressive when they need to be, but patient when it's also required. And these decisions are made instinctively and on an energy cost basis, meaning you don't make a move if it doesn't make any sense later in the race. Variable number 4 is the 400-meter mark. What place do you have to be in a slow, moderate, and fast-paced race? In slow races for men and women, you need to navigate yourself to make a move with 400 meters to go, ideally at the front or worst, middle of the pack. This is where the jets start turning on and where most of the athletes start to overcommit. In a slow race, nobody is winning from a move 400 to 600 meters in. However, you can definitely lose the race in that time. Stay out of trouble, pick up stragglers down the backstretch, and don't let the leaders get too far away from you. With 120 to go, with all of your might, kick to home, and that's how you win an Olympic gold in a slow race. In a moderate to fast race, it's ruthless but more forgiving tactically. The rules are the same. These athletes just have more leeway towards being towards the back of the pack, like Yuriy Borzakovskiy in 2004. But even he went from 8th place to 6th place at the bell. You need to start moving. Don't let someone else's mistake of taking their foot off the gas be your mistake by being behind them. This is the point of the race where everybody is navigating on slightly fatigued legs. You can be almost in any place in this race as long as you can make a move forward with the pack. Variable number 5 is the last 200 and 100 meters. The last 200 and 100 meters of the race is where the real champion is made in the 800. This is when the overcommitters in the first 400 and the early kickers from 400 to 600 pay the price. The 800 is a race of timing to its perfection. It's everything the 1500 meters is advertised to be, but it's the 800 meter that actually is a race of patience. Because if you time it right and navigate the last corner that leads to the home stretch, this is where superstar athletes who took the lead earlier in the race look human. But make no mistake, at this point you've made a 98% investment. You've battled for a position. You've fought for the inside lane going into the final corner. You committed to the gap that formed with 250 meters to go, and now you're barely holding on. You could collapse right now and not get up for an hour, except you still have 80 meters to go. The only difference between an Olympic champion and the guy ahead of him or the girl ahead of him is that the people ahead of them have invested 100% of their reserves compared to your 98%. And this 2% is all the difference you need. Maintain as upright as possible, control that pelvic tilt, and focus on lifting your legs and that downward force on fatigued and burning legs. One last surge and everyone comes back, and in the last 15 meters of your race, you realize, oh my God, I'm an Olympic champion. And that's what you have to do to win an Olympic 800 and the commonality between every champion. There are small exceptions to the last 100 to 200 rule. If you're David Rudisha in 2012, you've already won the race with 100 to go. But that's what happens when you're the greatest 800 meter runner ever and you're in your prime. So if we were to make the perfect 800 meter Olympic champion in a laboratory, these are the attributes they must have and the race strategy they must adopt. 1, they must be in their neurological prime, being around 24 for men and 25 for women. Our male athletes would be between 6'1" and 6'4", and 5'6" and 5'9" on the women's side. And our male should be around 162 pounds, while our female should be around 130 pounds, with BMIs of 21.4 and 20.5 respectively. 2, they have to be a master at one of the 3 800 meter archetypes: the 400-800 runner, the 800-1500 runner, or the 800 meter specialist. 3, they have to get out aggressive and clean in the opening chaos of the race. In the first 200 meters, the champion must attack the start with total conviction and claim their spot. 4, they must be composed through the bell lap split with 400 meters to go, and they must be making their move to better situate themselves for the rest of the race. 5, they must master the managed decay between 600 and 800, be in striking position with 120 to go, and have that last 2% gear at the end. And that is your perfect 800 meter Olympic champion. If you enjoyed this video, then you're really going to enjoy the commonalities between 1500 meter Olympic champions. Warning, it's a tactical nightmare. Go check out that video right here, and I'll see you guys there.